Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Bermuda Economic Development Corporation's lunchtime webinar on understanding how to get funding from an organization and everything that you need to know for application success. We are so excited to be joining you today. And we have a full, 90 minutes. Our presentation should be around 45 minutes, and that'll leave around 45 minutes for questions. And so, but if there are any questions during it, please feel free to type them into the questions or the chat box, and we will answer them. So to begin with, I just want to introduce your presenters today. So I am Eureka Smith, and I have the distinct pleasure of being the Executive Director of Bermuda Economic Development Corporation. And joining me today is my colleague, Ray Lambert, who is the Director of Micro, Small, and Medium Enterprise. And so we will take you through the process of making an application for funding from BEDC. Ray has, of course, firsthand experience and knowledge, as well as myself. But Ray and his unit, the MSME unit, Micro, Small, and Medium Enterprise unit, is directly responsible for providing advice and support to clients, to businesses, to entrepreneurs, to would-be entrepreneurs, and answering questions around starting businesses in Bermuda. What do they need to know? And then, of course, for directly processing applications for funding. And so it's great to have Ray with us because he can, of course, answer any and all questions that you may have. We're also going to present scenarios and help you to understand how we view applications and why it's important to have a really good, solid application. So the agenda is, of course, the introduction of the presenters, which I've already done. I will talk about some key learning objectives, what we want you to leave this afternoon's webinar with. We're going to give an overview of BDC. We're going to just give an overview of the types of funding products that we have available. We're going to speak about BEDC's business register because that is now the portal by which all applications should be submitted and approvals given. And then we're going to go into the funding documents and the requirements for what we need to have in order to review and approve an application. And then we're going to talk about what often goes wrong and how we can improve that process, both for BEDC and for yourself as the client. And then, of course, we're going to open that up for questions and answers. So you don't have to wait to the end if you have a question. If there is a question relevant to a particular section that we are presenting, then of course, by all means, ask it, and then we will do our best to answer it. Just to let you know, obviously, this is being recorded, so everyone that attends this webinar will get a copy of this recording afterwards. If you look at your dashboard, we also have a series of handouts that are attached to this webinar. So you don't have to wait until after the webinar ends in order to get access to these handouts. You can literally click on that dashboard and download each one of these handouts right now to your desktop or laptop if you want to. They are duplicates, so we do have them in PDF form if people have access to Adobe in order to read PDFs. And then we also have Word and Excel for some of the templates and spreadsheets. So without further ado, Ray and I are just going to crack on with it, and hopefully you guys leave and get a lot out of this presentation. I think it's also important for us to say that we really wanted to do this because we want to have businesses and entrepreneurs have success with their application process. And so whatever we can do to help to improve the process and help you to understand what it is we need and why we're asking for it, we think that that would be a win-win. So our key learning objectives are to learn about the various funding products that BEDC has to offer, learn how to successfully submit an application for funding from BEDC, learn what the various documents that are required are and what they mean and how we use them. And then obviously learn how the documents that you provide us help us to analyze the application for a decision. It's important to also note that BEDC is actively supporting businesses through this pandemic. And in fact, through the generosity of the Bermuda government and ultimately the taxpayers who provide those funds, we were granted funds to be able to assist businesses over and beyond what we would normally do. And so since the start of the pandemic, we have assisted in approving over 300 funding applications and have dispersed $5.5 million worth of financing to help businesses. And so I say all that to say that it can be achieved. You can be assisted. And in some cases, those businesses have come back for additional financing. Although this webinar is going to focus on our funding products, please also note that we have a number of other products to assist you. And so if you ever have a desire to understand what they are and how they can help, please meet with one of our officers who can provide free confidential advice. You can just go right through our website and book an appointment. And we are providing this in a virtual format due to COVID. You can go on our website to find information at BEDC.bm. You can also go on our YouTube channel, and we have recordings of every single last webinar that we have done over the last few years. And so all of that is information to help with your success. So who do we serve? So BDC, we were constituted in 1980, and essentially we serve Bermuda's local small and medium-sized businesses. And so in the context of our legislation, a small business in Bermuda has to be Bermudian and has to be owned and managed and operated locally. You can have a non-Bermudian owner, but it still has to have the majority shareholders or ownership by a Bermudian. A small business in the context of Bermuda is one that has an annual payroll not exceeding $500,000 or annual revenues or sales of not more than $1 million. So that's our definition in the context of Bermuda's landscape of what a small business is. And then under the Act, we also define what's a medium-sized business. It also has to be Bermudian and operated. But it also has the option of meeting at least 3 of these following attributes. So annual revenues between $1 million and $5 million, annual payroll between $500,000 and $2.5 million, a minimum of 11 employees, but a maximum of 50. It has to be in operation for a minimum of 10 years and net assets of less than $2.5 million. So if you are a locally operating business in Bermuda that meets any 3 of these 5 criteria, then under our Act, you're defined as a medium-sized business. Now, why does this matter? It matters because our Constitution and why we were created was to focus on our small businesses and our small businesses that grow, and hopefully we support them in growing to medium-sized businesses. We are not an agency or organization that serves international companies or exempt companies. We are not an organization that actually focuses on large-sized corporations. And so it really is about strengthening our local small and medium-sized businesses to grow our entrepreneurial ecosystem. It doesn't mean that we won't provide advice or refer or partner with other organizations that serve that larger community, that larger company. But it's important that there is a resource on island that serves the small startups and those startups that evolve into medium-sized businesses. And it's also important to define this because our products are geared towards this particular segment of our economy. And so we really want to make sure that we circle those products and services to serve the audience that we are mandated to. So this is just a quick overview of what BEDC does. We provide, as indicated, funding, and we do that in 2 ways. We provide direct funding from our own coffers to businesses, and then we also provide funding through the various financial institutions the 4 banks on the island, and then of course the Bermuda Credit Union. And in that case, we would act as a guarantor for businesses if they don't have sufficient collateral to secure the financing at those banks or the credit union. But in addition to financing businesses, we also provide entrepreneurship workshops and events. We also manage our 3 economic empowerment zones and are working on an initiative to extend or create another EEZ. We offer tax and customs duty deferment and concession programs. We also facilitate vending markets and vending licenses. So we manage those micro entrepreneurs, those vendors, those peddlers who really want to test a product or either, but don't want to go full-fledged into entrepreneurship, through issuing vending licenses. And we support the creation of vending markets across the island through sponsorship, advice, and support in order to allow those vendors to have areas to do their business. We have evolved to support youth entrepreneurs through various programs, and we're very excited about that because we believe in building the next generation of entrepreneurs who basically will solve Bermuda's problems and innovate so that we can have a country that is creative, innovative, and proud. And then last but not least, our new area is evolving into incubator and growth programs. And so we're really excited that we have an incubator program called the Enterprise Bermuda Incubator, which we are scaling up. And we're really excited about being able to launch fairly soon incubator hubs within our 3 economic empowerment zones. We have launched a growth program, an accelerator program called the Enterprise Bermuda Accelerator that literally started this week with existing businesses who have been in business for more than 3 years and they want to grow their business to the next level. We have the Summer Student Entrepreneurship Program, which is an incubator program for young people who are in high school and college in order to foster entrepreneurship. And so we're really excited about all the things that we're doing. And we give this as an overview for you to know that BDC does not just stop at funding, but we really want to grow Bermuda's entrepreneurial ecosystem. And so in order to do that, we have to provide support in a variety of ways. So, this webinar today is around how do you get funding from BDC? And so, businesses can finance in a variety of ways. They can do it through personal financing from their own savings and bootstrapping and family and friends. They can get financing through financial institutions, through debt financing or overdrafts or credit lines or credit cards. They can reach out to get partners and investors to invest in our business through equity investors or venture capitalists, angel investors, people who have high net worth, who have funding that they can invest in other businesses, and then crowdfunding. And then last but not least, through government partnerships and programs, and this is where BDC comes in, through providing direct financing, through guaranteeing finances through other institutions, and through providing concessions, incentives, preferential rates and terms. So BDC offers a number of financial products, and I'm going to let Ray take you through the various direct financing from us that we provide. So take it along, Ray.
Thanks, Sharika, and good afternoon, everyone. So as many of you know, we offer a BDC microloan. We actually offer a couple different products for that microloan, and we're just going to go through each one so you have a better understanding how they may differ. The most popular one is the direct loan, so the general microloan, which is direct loan from BEDC. That's a small loan for up to $30,000 to assist with businesses and their needs. So things like inventory purchases, service contracts, and/or capital items are all covered under this loan. So when we ask who can apply, it's startups, it's existing small and medium-sized businesses, it's vendors. So it's a pretty broad scope in as to who can apply. But but the primary thing is it's direct lending from us at BEDC. So the evaluation of which all happens internally, and that's a big part of what we're going to be discussing today. But that's the general microloan. So the general microloan could be used for a number of different products, small and medium-sized businesses and vendors. Now, we also have something called the BDC Debt Consolidation Microloan. So that's also a direct product from BEDC, also up to $30,000. But the difference is it's to assist with businesses to consolidate debt. So debt between $5,000 and $30,000, which is accumulated over the last 3 years, is what this product is for. So we want to see evidence of a payment plan, and with that in mind, sometimes it helps to put some of the small debts into a single payment plan, which is why we've come up with this product. Many small businesses owe bits of money, and sometimes they're paying more in interest than they're able to pay off. So we've come up with this product to assist with that. And as far as who can apply, again, it's startups, it's existing small and medium-sized businesses, as well as vendors. So we have had some popularity with this product over the last couple of years because, as you say, many businesses are going through these troubled times. Then there's also the sports club microloan. Once again, it's a product directly learned here at BEDC. But with this one, it's specific to assist with sporting clubs. So it's to assist with consolidation of debt, inventory purchases, service contracts, and/or capital items. So who can apply? It's sports clubs, but these sports clubs must be an LTD or an LLC. So for those sports clubs that are looking to improve their facilities or purchase uniforms, or in many ways trying to increase revenue, this is often a product that's been used to assist with them earning extra money and making that club more viable. So that's a product we've had for the last couple of years and also quite popular. The loan guarantee is actually one of the foundations of where BEDC started. So BEDC acts as a guarantor for small business loans, and this product over the last few years has increased. So currently, the BEDC, we can guarantee up to 75% of a bank loan, up to $300,000. Now, I often have to say up to because we only guarantee the part of the collateral that's required. So if a business or an individual has collateral already, then we would assess the plan, of course, but basically we are still the source of last resort. So any small business that has no other means of collateral may apply to BEDC for guarantee. This particular product, we partner with all the 4 financial institutions. So we work with Butterfield, HSBC, Clarion, and the Bermuda Credit Union for these particular loan guarantee products.
I just want to add that we're currently in discussions with Bermuda Commercial Bank also to bring them on as a partner for guaranteeing loans.
That's true. That's great. And I think they're going to be a fantastic partner as well. The other one that that many of you have either applied for or in need of is the BEDC COVID-19 Business Continuity and Sustainability Funding Program. So that's the loan grant that has been for existing businesses, small and medium sized, including vendors, and those located in the EEZs. So with this particular product, the interest rate is 3.5% to small and medium sized business, except for those in the EEZ. In the EEZ, as well as for vendors, the interest rate is 3%, which is a fantastic rate for any borrowing here in Bermuda. This particular product, we do a repayment terms for up to 42 months. We do have some flexibility. Some businesses like to do it a little earlier, so it's always up to 42 months. But the way this product works generally, because it's a product that was specifically designed for the COVID, or since the COVID pandemic, interest-only payments are usually provided for the first 3 months, and then up to 6 months as needed. So we work with the businesses to see when we can get that, ball rolling. Some of them need a little bit of breathing room before we start asking for our repayment. So we have some ability to do interest only, sometimes just first 3 months, and then, no interest at all, but then interest only for the first 3 months. So there's a little bit of discussion, negotiation on that. But the point is we have some flexibility that there's no payment for the first couple months as the business tries to get back on track. So with this one, there is a grant component, and the grants will only be deployed as part of the overall funding packages, which includes loans. So, in our loans, and with this particular package, it's a split between loan and grant. And so the first maximum funding level is tied to the band. So there is a band of available funding. I don't know if we have that particular chart, but basically, do we have that chart, Erika?
No, I didn't include it, but people could go on the website and see the various bands.
Yes. So the bands are tied to the revenue that a company earns. So for example, if a company earns up to $100,000, then they would be eligible for up to $10,000 loan under this particular COVID business continuity and sustainability program. So how that works is if a business was granted up to $10,000, then 50% of that loan would be loan and 50% would be grant. So if for example, that business has used that product, and at this stage, we have a few hundred that have actually used this particular product since the start of the pandemic. And in some cases, they're reapplying for a second round of funding because when this product first came out, no one knew how long the pandemic was going to last. So we have a phase 2 to this. And with the phase 2, we can lend up to 75% of that tier. So if a business, back to the example that I shared with, they were looking for $10,000 worth of funding. If they re-up again, that would be up to $77,500, which is 75%. The various stages go up to $40,000 as mentioned, but as Erika had pointed out, you can find that chart on our website, which is where this information is coming directly from. The funds are the funds, distribution of funds are also done in increments, which is agreed to by the applicant. So with these funds, we want to see that the funds were being spent on the items that they had requested. So they're distributed in something called tranche payments. So if you got $10,000, it would not be all provided one time. The first tranche payment is 50%. The second tranche payment to that would be 30%. And then the third tranche payment would be 20%. With those payments, before you get the next tranche, you would have to provide evidence that the funds were being used as was requested. So we want to see some of the receipts, i.e., that it was used for paying bills, for paying rent, and that's how we then issue the next round of funding. It's a very helpful product, and we've been quite pleased with it. So the rest of the so it's available to the rest of the program, available to small, medium-sized businesses, which is the second part. Preferred interest rates, and we also have the BDC grants, guarantees up to 75% with a guarantee of up to $300,000, as I mentioned earlier. The bank loan will guarantee the repayment, and it's in terms of up to 5 years. The BEDC guarantee up to 75% of an overdraft. So we also do overdraft loans for up to $50,000. With the bank overdrafts, the repayment terms are 18 months. So that's the loan portion, or the guarantee loans that we do. The funding documents that are required, First off, we've gone everything digital, so you have to log on to our BEDC website to understand the application process, and all that information is on the BDC site. You want to register through our business register. That's an important and new step. Everything that we now do, as I mentioned, is online, so you want to register a business through the portal. You want to check the list of use the checklist on the business register to guide you through all the documents that are required with your submission. You want to fill out each of the documents, upload the applications as required, all through the business register. We do have staff on hand to assist with that, but it's all on the business register. So one of the key documents is the business profile or business plan. So you would fill that out and download that. Personal financial statements, download, fill it out, and upload, and then financials and cash flow statements, which would then be uploaded as well. We're going to go through each of those phases, but the point is each of those are an important part of our documentation before we can begin the processing of those particular requests.
Ray, just before we go on, there is a question that came in related to, I think, the parts we talked about funding and especially maybe the guarantee. But the question is, what if an entrepreneur or would-be entrepreneur has no collateral and no income? What do they do then?
No collateral and no income. Is it a new business that she's referring to?
That's just a question, but let's just go through the scenario. So I can answer part and then you can weigh in. So, I mean, it's important to understand that BDC was created as the lender of last resort and the guarantor of last resort. So our fundamental remit and our premise is that we will help clients who cannot be helped anywhere else. We have a higher risk tolerance. We have the ability to be more creative, and we will take on deals that probably will not be supported by the financial institutions. So, for instance, if you're applying for funding from the bank and you have no collateral, then of course you apply to BEDC because we are the guarantor of last resort, and hopefully our guarantee will come in at a level that will give comfortability to the banks to approve that deal. And we've done hundreds, if not thousands, of these types of deals where people do not have collateral, and hence we would offer our guarantee as that collateral to secure that deal. On the issue of no income, well, the question is income with regards to the business you want to start or your personal income. Now, for our direct lending, our financing that we provide directly from BEDC, these are unsecured financial products. So there is no collateral required to receive funding from BDC. Where we get into asking about income is because in concept, when you get a loan, it is expected that the business itself would generate enough revenue in order to pay that loan back. That's the premise of all lending. But of course, you want to mitigate as much risk as possible to ensure that the applicant has a second form of repayment. And this is where income, right? Personal income comes in, because if the business becomes challenged and does not generate enough revenue to meet its funding or its loan requirements, there should be as much as possible a backup in order to pay that loan, which comes to personal income. That doesn't mean that we don't do the deal. We have many applicants who don't have personal income because they might be running their business full time, or that's the anticipation. They may have become redundant and now they're looking to entrepreneurship in order to generate an income. But we need to make sure that in that plan or strategy or application that's submitted, that thought is given as to how revenue will be generated, what you will do in order to reach those revenue targets, and that we have a comfortability that the loan, that the funding that we give will be repaid. I don't know, Ray, if you want to add to that, or
Yeah, no, thanks for that. And I think that was a good question. I think we'll find that those questions will come up in the rest of our presentation, because there's no one single component that we don't that just makes or breaks it, right? We have had businesses apply that as Erika pointed out, or individuals who are looking to start a business and therefore there is no income. But that's where the business plan or the business profile becomes very important, because we need to understand your plan to generate income. And as was also mentioned, the PFS, which we'll speak to, is also important, because not every business starts off at zero. It's important to understand where that individual is. Some people have second jobs and they're looking to start the business to generate revenue for themselves, but that doesn't mean that they don't have personal expenses. So the personal financial statement is your personal expense, but it still goes towards assessing that individual's ability to pay back those funds. So we'll touch on those in a moment, but the basic funding documentation that's required is all on the site, and each of those steps is important to understand what it is that we're looking to look at before we even begin the analysis process.
So Ray, we're getting some really good questions coming in and some scenarios. Do you want to answer them right now, or do you want to continue and
Well, it would be great if we can get through some of this, because I think some of those questions will be answered as they actually see what the documents are that we would be looking for and how those get distributed. But let me also,
of course,
see what's going
all
on
right,
here.
well, we will proceed on, but people are being very creative with their scenarios, so we love it.
Yeah, I mean, feel free to hit me with one if you feel it's more important to do so now. But I think that's part of it, right?
Yeah. Okay. So the next slide. Up.
Okay, the business register. Rika?
Okay. All right. So this is my part. So it's a very important, BDC is evolving as an organization. And of course, we want to embrace the technology and the digital age. And so it's very important to note, especially given COVID-19 and the impacts of trying to work, going to a remote environment forced us to have to figure out ways to receive people's applications. And although, we're all learning to live with COVID-19, it really helped us to embrace the digital and electronic process. So all of our applications are now funneled through BDC's business register. We will not be accepting hard copy applications for funding. And eventually this will transition into all of our products. It doesn't mean that we won't provide you with assistance and help, but we will ask you to think about, if you don't have a laptop or you don't have access to a computer, can you get access with a family friend? Can someone help you through the process? So we've created this business register, and the register accomplishes a number of things. You can access it directly through BDC's website. So we've put together some screenshots of where you can find it. So if you go to our website at bedc.bm, right in the right-hand corner, you will see a green tab that says Become a BDC member. So you first and foremost have to become a member of BDC, register yourself. And even if you don't have a business, you register your business, but if you don't have a business, you can register yourself, because there are many people that want to start a business. And so the intent is to register, to get in our register, and then you can access the products, the services, etc. Once you register, or you click on that tab in our website, then this pop-up screen will be a business register profile form, and basically you just have to go and fill that out in its entirety as much as possible. Whatever relevant information is related to you or your business, if you have one. And then once that happens, you will receive an email from BDC that says you have registered. Now create a username and a password, which then will enable you to log back on in order to log into the business register. And this is a screenshot of the login portal for the business register. which then allows you to then apply for the various products that BDC has. I've also attached at the top, this link right here is the actual to register your business or yourself. And then this is the link to the login. So we're trying to become more innovative and creative. You yourself will be able to then log back into the register to see what's happening with regard to yourself and your business, if you've applied for any products, any services, and then ultimately, if you do have a loan, then to repay that loan through the business register. We are also evolving the business register to be a resource to businesses, because we often get asked questions about, well, how many types of this type of business exists in Bermuda, right? How many retailers? Where are they located? And so if you have access to that information, it will help you to make better business decisions with regard to creating a business to enter industry, where are they located? And so I would say stay tuned with the evolution of this business register, which we're really excited about, because the information that's coming out of it will be useful not only to BDC, not only to the government and to the island, but also to you as entrepreneurs in making business decisions. What's also important is that I think the first thing is that the actual clock starts when BDC receives all completed documents. And we've highlighted all because we often get applications that are insufficient or not complete. And then we get phone calls from clients saying, okay, well, what's happening with my application? Why isn't it approved? And we can't start until we actually receive all the information. I would also say, once you go through the business register, remember to use the checklist and the guidance on our website and embed it into the business register when submitting. Use both to guide your submissions. And so, if I go back a couple of slides when Ray was speaking about each one of the various products, all of the information related to that product is actually on our website, right? So I've taken some screenshots and showed you, where you can find it. There's a tab that's called Products and Programs on our website that literally speaks to each product, what it is, what you can do with it, who can apply, what you need in order to apply, and then how do you apply. And it actually, if you go through that, you can download all of the required template documents you fill out. You can click through to the business register, and then you can upload the documents that are required. So that leads me into, upload all required documents to the business register. They are stored there. If you have additional documents that you want to add that are not being asked for, if it will help for us to make a decision and understand your business, by all means, do so. I encourage people to upload PDFs. That's the best. And you can download Adobe Reader in order to convert your Word documents. But even if you can't, we'll take Word documents, we'll take JPEGs documents. If you take a picture of something with your cell phone, that's a picture, an image, you can upload that. And then once that application is approved, we will ask you to pay for it through the business register, and then any repayments that are agreed will be done through the business register. So I think Ray is going to go through in kind of detail the whole application process to really help you to understand. And we have some samples. So in the handouts, in the document sheet on GoToWebinar, you can download those handouts because it also gives you some tangible examples or samples and ideas. And we'll screen share where we can so you can understand. So for the microloan product, and this is going to be just a general overview of all products. As I said, on our website, it clearly outlines what is required and what the product is. So if you go once again to the products and programs, it'll show you, once you click on that tab, it'll show you all of the products that are available. There's normally a description around the program, what it's about. Then there is a screen that you can click on that gives you a few details. So what are the details of the product that you are interested in? You know, is it guaranteed by BDC? Do we do a credit check? How is it processed? What is our processing time? What's the interest rates? What's the penalty or default? So detailed information that you may need in order to make a decision on whether or not this product is the best one for what you need it for. Then there is a screen that talks about who can apply. So, I mean, basically, you know, all small and medium entrepreneurs in Bermuda can apply for our products. But if it's a specific product for a specific industry, such as the sports clubs, then of course only sports clubs can apply for that product. And so it'll set out exactly what it means to be a small business, what it means to be a medium-sized business. And this is to help because we do get a number of inquiries from international companies saying, okay, well, can we apply? And I have to tell them, no, it's for local companies that have a majority Bermudian ownership component. And then there is a tab that talks to what you actually need. What are the products? What are the documents that you need to submit? And in that, we have downloadable templates, and we'll go through this in this presentation about what they mean. We need your personal financial statement. So what exactly is that? We need bank statements, right? If you are an existing business, we need to be able to look to see what has been your cash flow through your bank account for a period of time. If you're an existing business, we need financial information on your business. We need a cash flow projection. And so there is a template that you can download to fill that out. And then, of course, as in anything, we need to have a business plan. And if you don't have a business plan, then we've said, okay, well, fill out what we call a business profile, which is a document we created to help businesses who may not have had the time to create a business plan that ask some questions about that business, and we ask you to fill it out. And then, of course, you know, there are forms because we do ask for business and personal references. You don't have to submit the template document that we have created. We just created it to make it easier for people to give to someone to say, well, can you be a personal reference for me? But if you have a letter from someone that knows you and knows your business, then you can also submit that instead of the template. And then finally, on our website, it takes you through how to apply, right? And it also speaks to registering your business, log into the portal, submit the business profile, submit the application, how we process the application and application approval. And for each product, right at the bottom of the How Do I Apply page, there is a button or a link that allows you to register your business and allows you to log into the portal. So we have multiple touch points to get you to make that application feasible. And we encourage everyone, you know, to go on and read. And of course, our officers are available for free confidential business advice if you need to have some understanding further than what's on the website. I just wanted to take you very quickly what the funding application form looks like actually once you get into the business register. So we have some screenshots here. This is one for the microloan, but it asks you to determine whether or not you're applying for a straight microloan, a general microloan, or a COVID business sustainability and continuity funding application, which, as you know, Ray said earlier, the one related to COVID has to do with having a grant portion, and it also has to do specifically with the impact of COVID on your business over the last 2 years. Whether or not this is an individual joint application, whether or not this is a new application where you have never received funding for this product, whether or not you're asking for an increase, or whether or not you want to renew. And then it goes through and asks standard questions on who you are, what you're requesting, what's the purpose, et cetera, et cetera. The second, you know, I have to break this up to fit it on this presentation, but, you know, it'll ask you questions about telephone numbers, email address. It's going to ask the ID type because we have to run a credit check for every client that applies for funding with BEDC. And the only way to do that is to either have a driver's license or a passport. Now, I really want to put in a caveat here. If you have bad credit, that does not prevent you from getting funding from BDC. We have, of course, we're in COVID, and we have seen that people's credit has been challenged as a result of trying to meet obligations, but impacted by COVID. That is fine. The key is our understanding and your understanding of what those credit issues are, and do you have a strategy and a plan to address them? And is that strategy and plan included in your business plan or business profile, and in your vision and strategy for your business in order to address them? And have you made any attempt to address them? So those are the questions that we ask. Obviously, we ask about marital status and dependence because based on your own personal income, we need to know, are there any other impacts with regard to being able to meet the loan if the business is challenged? So if you have dependents that your personal income is attached to, then of course that means that there may be less income to pay for a loan if the business itself becomes challenged and not able to pay back that loan. And then some other information. And what's key is we do ask about debts. We do ask if you have any judgments, and that's just to get a sense of who you are. It's not a limited factor in approvals. And as I said, we have approved many applications from people who have challenges in those ways. So past challenges does not mean that the success in the future is already determined. It is not. We asked if you are a guarantor for anyone else, and if you have been convicted, because obviously we're providing financial products that have been given to us by the government. We have an obligation to ask those questions. But once again, that is not a limiting factor because, you know, we're an organization about second chances and redemption. And so we just need to know in order to have a strategy to address. The application process through the business register that we have provided screenshots then asks you to upload all the required documents that you would have already compiled because you would have gone to our website and read everything that you need to have prepared for the particular application that you're applying for. And so there would be a choose file. You would upload something that is stored on your computer or laptop. And then once again, this is the kind of the checklist that asks you to upload the required documents that we need to have in order to move forward. And then last but not least, it comes to the end. The application fee only becomes visible and needed once we approve it. So this will stay grayed out. Once you have an approval, we ask you to log back in because we would have then approved it through the register. We ask you to log back in. There would be a tab that says pay, and then you can click through and pay. And then everything in yellow is what BDC does. So we have obligations. If there are any other documents we need to upload, we'll run a credit check and we'll upload that. And right now, because of COVID, we've reduced we've taken away the fee for the credit check. So we eat that. We've reduced the application fee by 50%. We have reduced the interest rate significantly. So we're really trying to help businesses, and we will do whatever we can in order to do so. And then the contracts associated with the loan, once we have them signed by you and us, they will be uploaded. And so, as I said, everything in yellow is what BDC does. There is a blue button at the end that you submit, that you push to submit your documents. But I think it's also important to note that if there are some fields that have not been filled in that are required, the application will not go through. So it should flag up to you that you have to either address that empty field or upload something in order to submit. So I think I'm going to turn it over to you, Ray, to kind of go through the business profile and business plan areas.
Yes. No, thank you. And
I think right now we're about 45 minutes in. So okay. Yeah. Sorry.
So the key point that you made, and I think we do have some challenges on occasion, is that we need to have all of the information submitted before we begin processing. So what happens, and particularly since COVID, we've done somewhat in the neighborhood of 300 applications since the pandemic. So our resources are quite stressed. It's important that you understand that we're working as quickly as we can, but there are weeks that our employees are literally inundated with applications, and it's difficult to move on until it's completed. So what happens when it first comes in is it goes through the admin team. The admin team take a basic review, and you will get information or a request for particular information that's missing but that individual is not analyzing that business plan as of yet. They're not analyzing the details. They're just making sure that it's all there. Once all the information appears to be there, it gets forwarded to an officer, and it's the officer who does the analyzing of the individual request. So the officer will often come back and say, well, I have your business profile, but I need to understand a little more. So let's talk about it. So these next couple areas that we're highlighting are key, because the business profile is one of the primary documents that we need to have an understanding of when it comes to lending funds. So on the application itself, it's a fill-in application, but the questions are pretty straightforward, and we've done it this way because sometimes when you leave it up to a business to answer questions, they don't always answer the questions that we need to know. So we've actually included some of those basic questions as a means to make sure that the applicants are answering the things that are important for the analysis. So the first area is history and nature of the business, background experience. That's all pretty straightforward. Just tell me about your business. Tell me about the location and all the details. And as you can see here, Eureka has put together a really well done business profile that kind of highlights that section, right? The business in question is a retail business, and they say that they provide high quality shoes, bags, and accessories to women. Okay, so we understand that. It's owned by so-and-so. It has existing for 10 years. They've previously been working as a senior buyer, so you get to understand a little bit about who that individual is. And then there are some of the brands that they represent, and the objective is to cater to on a very particular portion of Bermuda. So in this plan, they're basically telling you, what they're looking to do, who they're looking to do it with, and being very specific about their target market. So if we can go back to the profile questions. So yeah, business location, ownership, management, and staff, purposes of funding, customer market experience, projected revenue and expenses, all of those basics. So we've broken this down just to kind of go through some of those details. And as you can see,
just to let everybody know, because there may have been people that came on a little bit late. All of these sample business sample documents are located in the handout portion of the webinar. So if you look at the dashboard, you can download each one of these to your computer. If you want to look at it right now, and you might want to blow it up so that you can see. And we will also send this to you as a sample. So what Ray is going to do is go through each one of the sections so that you have a better understanding of the questions. But for this sample, we took a screenshot of every page. So this first one asks the history, the business location, and the ownership, management, and staff. The second one talks about the purpose of the funding and the customer market. And then the last one talks about the projected revenue and the SWOT analysis. Sorry, go ahead, Ray. Did you want me to go back?
Sure, just go back to business location, because I think what also is important is to note that the primary questions that we're asking is actually written at the very top of each section. And I guess we have to talk a little bit about some of the things we've seen, because when we say describe where the business is located, you can see, the answer provided here was you give an exact address. You give a little bit of background as to, it's a visible space. It's easily accessible to both visitors and locals, right? You have a lease, and you're negotiating that lease for some rent relief, and there's impact to the global pandemic. A little bit more about the size and the square footage. They're talking about the fact that this business is looking to grow. And then there are somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 retailers in the area. So without getting into, with still trying to make it brief, we've actually had people respond to this in one-word answers. And those one-word answers don't give us enough information to better understand exactly the situation. Each business is different, but we want to give you an opportunity to expand on that. So what often happens is we'll get some of these back and they don't give the information. So when you have that meeting in some occasions with an officer, there's all kinds of information that can be added. Our thing is the more information that you're able to put about your business from the start just makes it that much easier to understand your individual predicament as it pertains to whatever the subject is. But in this particular section, the location is important. Just a general understanding of where the business is it a good location or not? And then there's always some questions there, of course. And are there any competitors and who those competitors are? So very important. The third section down below. Sorry.
I also just want to just say, Ray, I think, you know, for the, because it's going to be a question, I know. So if you don't have a location because you're a new startup, okay, well, what is your ideal location? What do you do? Where do you think would be best for your business to be successful? You can put where you're trying to look for. What if it's an online business? Then you can say, we don't have a physical location because it's an online business, but we operate from our home. And this is, so, I mean, there's always an answer. I think location is key. So, you know, what we also discuss in our classes, but if you don't have a location, you still need to write the business plan or business profile based on where you think the business located. So you may not have a specific area, a specific street already identified or property, but you can say, for instance, in this case where it's a high luxury business, the most ideal location would be to be, you know, on Water Street in St. George's, because there are a number of visitors that come by, and we want to make sure that our business is located in a high profile area. And so we will do whatever we can to get as close to that area as possible, or something like that.
Yes, as you said, Eureka, it becomes very specific, and that's fine, because that's the point, right? No one, you know, it's your application about your business, and our officers are trying to work with you to understand that. But we just need information. Whatever the business is, whatever the model is that you have in mind, the more you can share, the easier it is to understand. The next section, ownership, management, and staff. You know, describe the management and staff, the details, experience and qualifications, and the ownership structure. You know, those are things which is helpful to understand if that person has experience in that particular field, right? You know, in this case, the person cites 20 years of experience. That speaks a lot about whether or not they understand that particular model or not, or the business type. You know, the structure, this particular one is a sole proprietorship. You know, they're fine doing that, and they're not looking to necessarily grow into an incorporation, which is also great. You know, but again, that just helps us to understand. You know, she has a bachelor's degree. She also has you know, some staff that she can cite. All of that is just helpful to understand that particular section. So as much information as you can provide, once again, is very important. Another area is the use of funds, the next page. So describe the purpose of the loan, break down the purchases, the shipping, the duty, etc. This just makes it real clear. You know, as we said, the maximum is 30 grand, and it doesn't mean you have to figure out how to spend 30,000. You know, you really need to put the things on here that you need, and the 30,000 is the max. It just doesn't mean you have to try and borrow 30 because it's there. But in the meantime, you know, how is that 30,000 going to be used? This particular business breaks down the fact that they're purchasing shoes. Some of the duty and shipping are there, some website upgrades, marketing campaign, and that's how they came up with the 30. It's important to recognize that in our applications, we then ask for some actual quotes to back these up, because the loan is very specific to the request, right? So there are some things that we won't support, or maybe, do you really need to do A, B, and C? Do you really need 30 grand? Can you actually afford that 30 grand? Those are things that come up in the analysis, but in the meantime, it's also needs to be understood if there are things that are missing in your cash flow. So sometimes people ask for funds and not include things like duty, shipping, and handling. So you have to then ask the question, okay, if you're asking money for the inventory, then how are you going to pay for the duty, shipping, and handling? So it's one of those things where getting that information allows us to assess it as it pertains to the cash flow, which we'll discuss later. Customer marketing competition. This is always an interesting one because, again, it really needs to be understood that the individual who's looking to start or already in this business is the one who should have the answer to these questions. One famous one that we get, and we get it probably more often than you might realize, is I have no competition. We really have a challenge with that one because it really doesn't matter what the business is. There's almost always some form of competition. So to articulate that within this plan is very important. So explain a little bit who your customer market is. And again, we also have some that will answer to say, you know, my target market is everybody. It's also helpful to break that out a little bit. So you can see in the example here, you know, this person is very specific, targeting females between 30 and 45, single professionals, median household income of 150 to 200 grand. That information would come from statistics. So again, this is where the research is, right? You know, use your tools to do some research as you fill out this application, because those are the questions that we wanted to make sure that you, the individual business owner, understands. Who is your customer market? And who is your competition? You know, understanding that there are other businesses in this field. So the more that you can speak to this particular area, the more or the less questions our officer will have as they go to understand your particular needs. So the projected revenue and expenses, again, you can see up top, we get into to describe the revenue projections, the operating expenses, and how the loan will be paid back. So in this case, this is the one part that we recognize that there's more to this, which would show up in the cash flow projections and the profit and loss, as well as the balance sheet. But generally speaking, the person has made the point that, you know, they're looking to sell shoes at a 300% markup at a price point of $1,200 each, and that revenue will cover shipping duty, etc. So that gives us some breakdown as to what they're looking to do. The cash flow shows the break-even assumption when they would break even when 25 shoes are sold in this case, and they anticipate that all 50 shoes will be sold to capture the customers based on a 3-week or a sale. So they're actually doing a sale as part of their promotion, and then they're also looking to they recognize they have overhead expenses of about $15,000 and a profit of $15,000 for the month. So that gives us some understanding as to how the cash flow projections play out on the backside, which is very helpful indeed. Down below, we asked for a SWOT analysis. So SWOT analysis, we actually have a chart on that: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Again, you know, the more you can elaborate on this, the better. In this case, they have 3 or 4, which is great because, again, you have to appreciate that our officer is also doing an analysis which includes the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So the more that they understand about your business and where you see those strengths and opportunities, helps them to understand and articulate that in their analysis. So this person has highlighted exclusive luxury products, their location as being a strength, good sound business plan. They have engaged customer base. So those are the strengths. The key to this is always to recognize where those weaknesses also lie. So you know, Bermuda's retail is oversaturated. So instead of just saying that, okay, well, how do you mitigate that? Now, well, they're answering it. Mitigate this by focusing on very specific brands. So they're speaking to the fact that they recognize that retail is saturated, but they're going to be very specific about their target market. The supply chain issues, that's a weakness. That's a weakness for many businesses, and they're going to mitigate that by purchasing goods from multiple geographic markets. That means that in their case, if one supply chain is not able to produce or get those goods, then there's still inventory that may be coming from other sources. So that's somebody who's thinking about some of the real life challenges we're dealing with. Opportunities, those are things that you may not be doing right now. And then, of course, threats. Threats are the bad things that you also have to consider. The challenge in the economy, new entrants to the market, and then once again, how do you mitigate those particular concerns? So this plan touches on all of that, which is really good.
So I just want to say the kind of next 6 slides are just basically the questions that Ray went over. So we're going to speed through these because we're conscious of time and we want to get to your questions. But, you have this presentation. So these are the questions that ask about the history and nature of business, some sample that you can answer in your business profile, business plan. The SWOT analysis, so this breaks down exactly what SWOT is and some of the things that you can think about. And I think the key in all of this, because we still are in COVID, is to highlight anything that has impacted as a result of COVID or any opportunities that has arisen as a result of COVID. Ray spoke about the business location, do you own, do you lease? What's the terms? Have you asked for any rent forgiveness? Are you in arrears? What's your strategy for addressing that? The ownership, management, and staff, Ray spoke to this, right? So are there any compelling things about the business, the managers or the staff? Do they have any special talents that set them over and above anybody else in the industry or market? How many do you have? Has it been impacted by the pandemic? Have you brought those people back? How will your business continue to operate in this current environment? The proposed use of funds, Ray spoke to that. So how will you use it? What's the amount? What is your backup? If it is for payroll, because we do also provide a product that covers payroll as a result of COVID, have you applied to the unemployment benefit with workforce development? And now that's a transition into, the provisions for financial assistance. If it's inventory, what's the timing? When do you need to have it? It's important to get your application in as early as possible because, as Ray said, we have dozens, hundreds of applications that we're processing at the same time, and we have finite resources. This is talking about the customer market and retention, right? So who are your competitors, right? If someone has $100, that's the disposable income, how will they spend it? So it may not be a competitor in your particular industry, but it may be something similar. So you have to highlight that. And then projected revenue and gross profit. So if you got the loan from us or financing, and then you went through your day-to-day operations and you implemented the strategies that you want to do, what is your projection of revenue and what's your expenses? Do you have anything solidified by contracts and agreements? How do you intend to pay back the loan? And then the supporting financial statements and documents with it. We want to go through some of the financial documents fairly quickly. So earlier we spoke about the personal financial statements. And as I said, it is really to understand whether or not you have a secondary form of repayment if the business itself has challenges in repaying back the loan. So we ask for a personal financial statement. I think if most people have gone to the bank for a loan, even for a personal loan, they'll have to fill out a personal financial statement. And essentially all it is capturing your personal expenses, your personal income from your full or part-time jobs, and then your personal assets, what you earn, and then your personal liabilities of what you owe to come up with a picture of who you are. In BDC, we have a standard template that's pretty self-explanatory. I have a screenshot here. So this is the income part that talks about your income, your expenses, fixed expenses, flexible expenses, and then ultimately this calculates to come up with what we call a debt service ratio number. In lending, financial institutions tend to keep DSR under 50%. So that means that of your total income, 50% of that is being allocated towards expenses. BDC, we have a higher risk tolerance, so we have helped clients who have a much higher debt service ratio. It's just whether or not they have a cogent strategy and plan to support how they're going to pay back the loan. And then this part right here is the personal balance sheet that talks about your current assets, your liabilities, do you earn anything, to come up with a figure that's a net worth. If it's low, if you don't earn anything, it does not mean that you cannot be assisted. And I really want to reiterate this, right? But it helps us to understand who you are and who your business is. And then, sorry, go ahead, Ray. You wanted to speak on that?
Just to add, remember, it's your personal net worth and your personal income that we're assessing. What often happens with this particular exercise is sometimes people will put in some of the assets of the business or some of the expenses of the business. This is not what that is. This is personal income and personal balance. And when it comes to salaries, you know, some people often have other jobs, so it's important that, you know, that becomes the point, right? If the job that if the business is your salary, then fine. But in other cases, the primary salary may be a job and the business is new. So just make sure that when you fill this out, it is referring to your personal income as opposed to mixing the two.
I just want to quickly just answer a question. Yes. So for those that didn't come in at the beginning, everyone will have access to these recordings. Everyone will have access to the handouts. We do a follow-up survey at the end of every webinar, and then we send you the link to the recordings. But you also have access to all previous recordings. So we have, BDC has a YouTube channel. You're free to go to it and look at all of those recordings of past webinars, which is important. But we also have a page on our website that is a link to all of our webinars and recordings, as well as we have a podcast. We have a weekly radio show called Mind Your Business that happens on Thursdays at 4 o'clock. So you can listen to those recordings. So we're just going to bring this to a close. I think what we want to express here is that it is very important for us to have an understanding of the financial history of your existing business. And if you're not existing, the projected cash flow, you know, the income expenses that will be as a result of getting financing from BDC and any other revenue that you expect. So financial statements comprise of 3 key components: cash flow statement, forecast or projections, income and expenses statement or profit and loss statement, and balance sheet. And so in any application, we want to have a sense of those 3. You don't have to have a fancy application like QuickBooks. We've taken applications where people have just used spreadsheets, but it's just important that you have an understanding of where your business is financially. And so, Ray, I don't think we're going to go through each one of these slides due to time, but what I will do is go straight through the actual templates.
Yes.
So if you guys want to look at this a bit more, you're in time, it'll explain what a cash flow statement is, what it's comprised of. And then we have 2 slides that actually show you the templates that BDC works with. So Ray, I'll let you kind of take a hit at these 2.
Yeah, so the one that you see on the screen now is basically the new version that you can download. You know, one of the key things to recognize is most businesses have more than one revenue stream, so it's important to understand your business that you kind of break that out, right? In this case, it's a retail shop, so they sell handbags, shoes, and other accessories. So to break that out, as you can see here, they sell, you know, they're looking to get $4,000 or so in shoes in the month of July. There's no revenue for bags in July, but there is some revenue in August. And then it doesn't appear as though there's any revenue for accessories until later that year. So that kind of hits a couple different points. One is that the various revenue streams will sometimes fluctuate. So there's some seasonality that's always good to recognize, right? Particularly in retail, you know, what you sell in December is generally a little different than what you might sell in January and February. And then there's other peaks around cotton match, etc. So to be able to show peaks and valleys in that revenue is important. That also goes for your expenses. Your expenses, there are some key expenses that should really be included and recognized. But some of those expenses will also go up and down depending on the seasonality of the business. But as you have a chance to look at it, you'll see that. Down below here, she included some assumptions, which is great to be able to understand how they reached some of those numbers. So that helps our officers significantly in assessing and understanding their business cash flow.
So Ray, I think it's important for people to understand how we become confused or how we become challenged in kind of being able to process an application.
Sure, I agree. So one of the big things is we spent a lot of time speaking on the business profile, but when the cash flow projections do not reflect what was submitted in the business plan, that becomes a confusion because the two should mirror one another. What you write down for your cash flow should be the same products and services that you're looking to offer, what you told us in the business plan, and that's not always the case. So the more the two are related, the easier it is to understand. Sometimes the key expenses they're not included or underestimated. I'll give you an example. Sometimes a company may not include utilities, meaning Belco, for example, as one of their expenses. Well, we all know that Belco can be pretty expensive depending on your energy usage. So that's a key expense that needs to be included. But we also have sometimes where they just don't include things. They'll talk about a marketing or promotional campaign, but make no allowances for those in their projections. So those are the stuff we're talking about. The revenue not being broken out, I think I just spoke to that. That helps to be able to understand what the business is made of, right? And just saying, I'm going to make $10,000 a month doesn't really give us an understanding as to how you got to that number. Number 4, the new startup revenues do not show a gradual growth, and sometimes, yeah, they're overestimated. So what happens is if a new startup comes in and says, okay, I'm starting up the business in February, and I'm gonna be making $20,000 a month because I have 50 customers. Well, where'd you get 50 customers from? It may take you a few months to reach that level. So sometimes it makes a little bit more sense to start off where you may show 5 customers, 10 customers, and then how you gradually get to that number as opposed to expecting instant sales, because it generally doesn't work that way. Number 5, the revenue estimates do not allow for seasonal fluctuation. So we talked about that. Many businesses are affected by seasonality. So if your business is tourist oriented, or if your business is retail and has to do with some of the season purchases, then there's some seasonality that will show up if you actually look at your past sales. But in a new business scenario, that's something to certainly consider. Increasing revenues, we're not anticipating an increase in expenses. So an example of that would be, let's say, a water truck business. So the water truck business is delivering water, and they're making, again, let's say $10,000 a month. And with that $10,000 a month, their fuel bill may be, I don't know, let's call it $1,000. But if they're making $20,000 in sales, then you would also expect that fuel bill to also increase, because that's directly related to the product or service. So recognize that the two, more revenue often means more expenses. And then finally, while it's always important that a business owner understands how they got to particular numbers, they should always consider a bookkeeper or an accountant to assist, particularly when it comes to past financials. Some of us are very specialized in what we do, but it often is, this is the biggest downfall of what I find most applications, where that person's trying to do it all themselves and not understanding the importance of the financial components. So seeking that assistance is often a great way to get going. And oftentimes in our meetings, we ask to have the accountant present if they're there to assist with understanding that part of it. So seek an accountant, bookkeeper, or somebody that you know that's good with the numbers if it's not you.
Just to let the audience know, so we are going to stay on till 2:15. I know you have to go, so we will answer every question. We probably might not answer it all verbally, but we will respond to every question. We will email out all of the answers to the questions with the handouts and the recording, so you will have access to it. So the cash flow statement, just very quickly, so that is a projection of what's going to happen, what you anticipate will happen over the next 12 months or 24 months. It's also a projection based on your best analysis of the industry, of the environment, of the economy, how many sales you will make, what revenue you would generate, as well as what expenses will happen. But the income statement is an actual reflection of what has actually taken place thus far. So if you're an existing business, your income statement will show what you actually did for the last 12 months or the last 6 months, what revenue you actually generated, and what it was your expenses. And it essentially gives us an idea of the performance of the actual business. You know, was it profitable? Did it make a profit? Did it make a loss in the year before or the 2 years before? Because it helps us to speak to, well, what is the strategy you're going to employ if it did make a loss in order to make a turnaround for the next year coming up. Okay, so this gives you a sense of what it is. Essentially, the formula is that if you have revenues and you deduct from that the cost of your goods sold, or what is the cost of any goods that you need to purchase in order to run your business, and then you also deduct expenses, you will either come out with a net income or a net loss. So did you make a profit or did you make a loss? You yourself as a business owner should be doing this analysis every month, right? You can write down simply in a Word document or in a spreadsheet a recording of what your daily revenue is and what your daily expenses, so that when you get to the end of the month, you can be able to have a snapshot view of how did you meet your targets. And this is basically a sample income statement. As I said, these samples are in the handouts, so you will have them and you can download them. But this gives you an example of what that business started with. They had $1,000 on him and they started. So for their last 12 months, this is what they actually generated per month, as opposed to the cash flow projection, which was a projection of what they would do. And these are their actual expenses. So for the purpose of this exercise, this business actually made a profit because their monthly expenses were less than their monthly income. And so this was a pretty good business for them. And then last but not least, the balance sheet is basically a snapshot of the business at a particular period of time. And it looks at the assets of the business, the liabilities, and any equity that the owner or the owners might have given into or put into that business. So and all three of these statements actually speak to each other. And we're just going through this quickly because it's important for them to be submitted as part of the application. Obviously, our focus is not on these particular documents, but we want you to know what we need to have in order to assess your business. Some more information, and then this gives you understanding of a sample balance sheet. So assets are at the top, liabilities and equity at the bottom, but ultimately they should balance. So in this case, in that year, this business assets was 730,000 and their liabilities and equity was 730. So this balance. So that's what a balance sheet is. So we have 2 more slides and then we'll take the questions. So Ray, what often goes wrong with regard to the application process?
So we've pointed this one out, and again, you know, each situation is different, but incomplete, inaccurate, or inaccurate information is always a challenge, right? It's important that we get as full a picture as we can. We're certainly willing and able to work through some of those challenges. So oftentimes you will meet with the officer, or the officer will call you to say, you know, I don't understand. Can you better articulate. But you know, it's very important that you understand the answer, and if that information is not specific to your understanding, have an accountant or somebody on hand. Not submitting through the business register. Well, that is a big challenge, and we have had some challenges with the business register. It's getting better, but because we've been working from home, it's been very difficult for everybody on this one. But not submitting through the business register, occasionally people will fill out something and then we have to download, and that takes a little while. So we try and work through those processes if a person cannot put it through the business register, but oftentimes that leads to a little bit of to and fro. Illegible application. So we have had cases where we've had handwritten documentation, and in some cases, scribbles through, and it becomes tough. So now everything is fill in, and it should be a whole lot simpler because you just type it right into the application, and as opposed to trying to hand fill. Even with the personal financial statement, if you look at what's been submitted there, it actually adds, subtracts, and comes up with a ratio within the program. So if you were to just copy that and hand write the information in, it's certainly a lot more difficult because you're using a calculator versus allowing it to calculate, and it will not necessarily come up with the correct information. So use the formats that have been provided. Partner information not provided. That can be problematic sometimes because if there's a partner involved, we need to understand what their involvement is as part of that, and if they're not included, we can't always lend funds unless we have a full understanding of the ownership. So the more information that's understood on that situation is extremely helpful. One sentence answers, I mentioned this earlier in the business profile. These don't have to be extremely long, but they need to be filled with the correct information of understanding what the business is, the history, the market, all those things that we spoke about earlier. The more information, the better. We talked about the payroll tax and social insurance. While we aren't necessarily, while owing funds to payroll tax and social insurance isn't automatically a disqualifier by any means, we need to understand that there is communication with those particular government departments, and our payment plan is in place. So we do ask for that information, and that's information that we expect the businesses to provide within the business register request. No bank statements, personal financial statements, and/or financial statements. That's part of the process, as we've said on numerous occasions at this stage. So please submit that information as up to date as you can, because it helps to assess in real time exactly why you may need what you need, and the situation of the business as our officers are doing the analysis. So all that information is very important and helps us to help you.
Sorry, Ray, I was just typing answers to people's questions. So I think this is the last slide. So in closing, I mean, we just want to highlight that there is a process for applications and for everyone to prepare, first of all, in order to have a successful submission. It is understanding what is required by going to the BDC website. It is registering your business. It's using whatever checklists or guidance are available and submitting documents needed. It is about completely filling out the application and uploading it. Also the business profile to have more in-depth information as opposed to one-liners. Submitting a personal financial statement about your personal income, and then of course having financials and projections in the cash flow to validate your request and to give us an understanding of how your business has done before. If you are in business, and obviously if you're not, if you're a new startup, then to know what the projection is and what you need the funding for. And the key to all this is to go through the business register. So we are right at 2 p.m. So I think we can just answer some of these questions, and I will also type some of the answers. But Ray, so one person asked about what about commingled accounts? Should they have a separate business and personal account, or does it make a difference? What's the ideal? And then also, could some of the financing be used to pay off credit card debt? So my answer is it's ideal to have separated accounts because it makes it easier. But we do help clients who have commingled accounts, and hopefully over time, they will actually separate out their business operations from the personal account. And also, we can consider paying off if it's a business credit card that has business debt in order to do a debt consolidation to consolidate in order to help the business. Anything you want to add to that, or you're fine with that answer?
No, I'm fine with that. I guess with the person in particular that was speaking about commingling, you know, that comes back to best practice. We appreciate that many businesses start off as small businesses where they are using their personal accounts and putting funds there. And as the business gets, grows, then they're looking for assistance, and we're acting for accounts. It just gets harder to separate that stuff. So I often, encourage people to set up as soon as they recognize that the business is going from more of a hobby, if you will, to a real business, because it allows you and your accountant to be able to clearly see what's going into the account. And I think where it becomes a real interesting challenge is oftentimes where people who don't pay themselves are then paying themselves with the funds that came out of the business for groceries and other things. So it can get confusing. It can be worked through, as Erika had pointed out, but it does become very difficult, particularly when you start getting into large volumes of transactions and, of course, money. So it's okay to be naughty, but it's a good one to start 2022 or 2022 off on the right foot and separate those accounts.
Okay, the next question was, what if someone has a loan at the credit union but is seeking more funding for a small startup business? Can this be considered? So my answer is yes, it can be considered. We can add on to that loan. We could also look at options to pay off the credit union loan and consolidate all the funding. Obviously, we will assess this. It's spelled assessful. Assess this on a case-by-case basis, but we have supported businesses that have actually received additional funding to pay off their credit union business loan and consolidate into one loan. Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't get a chance to type the answers to the rest. I'll just ask them. One question was about, can you view online the services offered if you don't have a business as yet? They've tried to register, but was unable to. Is there another site to register on? So obviously, all of the information that we have is on our website about the services and the products, as well as the application for it. In the register, it asks if you have a business or not. So if you have no, but then it goes on to ask about, well, do you intend to start up a business? So I think that's the qualifier. If you don't have a business, but you're thinking about starting up one, what would that be? But I will double check with our software developers to just make sure that there isn't a limiting factor that requires you to put in information if you haven't already thought about what type of business, if you're really at the startup phase and you haven't got that far yet. Because I must admit, I tried to do it myself as a sample business that hadn't started yet yesterday, just in time for this seminar, and I couldn't get it submitted. So I acknowledge that there is an issue, and we will get back to you with more information on that. A question was around what if an entrepreneur has two businesses, one that is very active and one that has debt and is inactive? Are we able to apply for a microloan for the active business and a debt loan for the second business? So two separate businesses for one owner. Yes.
Yes, they can. I mean, it's important to recognize that that as a sole proprietor, and that will be the difference if it's a sole proprietorship versus a limited company. But the simple answer is yes. It doesn't mean that we wouldn't have questions, because we still would want to understand how the business of debt is being paid back. But by all means, it's better to be upfront and forthright as we go through the process, because our offices can best assist when we understand the picture, the full picture.
I would agree. I think part of the question was, would if you are a person that has multiple businesses, could you get multiple financing? And the answer is that we have provided one person or one earner with multiple financing because they have multiple businesses. Another question is, the inactive business has great potential but early went down due to debt. So my answer is that yes, we can actively look at helping you to form a strategy to bring your business back, but it is tied to really understanding your business strategy, your profile, and your projections, and then understanding who your customer market is. Okay. I have another question. I have an item for home-based food delivery business. The kitchen will be converted to be a commercial use and delivered through delivery services. Will I be able to apply for funding for either like this?
For me, the answer is yes, but there are some prerequisites that may need to happen before financing is provided, and that has to do with making sure that the home kitchen has approval from planning. That sometimes can be a stumbling block, making sure that those permissions are granted. But if it's a point for us that we like to raise with the individual to make sure that they're doing their due diligence with the other government departments, and that is one, just to make sure that that planning are okay with the kitchen that you're planning to use.
I would agree wholeheartedly. So yes, we will support an idea, but you have to have approval from whatever the governmental or permitted agency that is. So for commercial uses in residential properties, there often is a change of use application that is required that has to go to Department of Planning. And then also for commercial kitchens, you have to receive licensing from the Department of Health. But once you have them, and it's approved, then of course we will submit. We would normally support an application for financing, for kitting out, and for helping that business.
Erika, just on a similar vein, with food trucks and trailers also being quite popular, that's also one that comes up. Somebody wants a food truck, we can approve in principle, but we wouldn't be able to provide financing until that individual has approval from transport to have a truck license and put on the road.
Yeah, that's a good one, Ray. One of the questions is, they say they submit the information. What's the timeline on approval and receiving funds? That's a tricky one.
It is. We try and this is challenging because as we've said, we've been inundated with requests, and we work through them as they get received. We try to work with them in a way where they can be done if everything's all straight in as quick as 15 or 20 days. But so much of this depends on the individual application, and then our ability from the officer standpoint to actually execute that. But we get to them as quickly as we can, and I can't stress that anymore. Our officers at any given time are juggling 4 and 5 applications, and it comes back to how good is the presentation, how complete is the presentation, because oftentimes what is deemed to be complete before we look at it isn't always viewed in the same way, as we have to get through the nuts and bolts of understanding that business model.
I think it's just important to us to say that the ability to approve has been delegated down to me from the board, because normally applications will go to the board of directors, and then obviously I've delegated that down to you to do, giving you the authority. But every application that comes in, so once you submit your information, It's not just an assessment by the officer and an analysis. They have to write a report that actually takes that information, answers all of the questions that we have asked you in a report. Sometimes these are 5 or 6 page reports, and then makes the recommendations based on that. So they write out their analysis of what they think will happen and a recommendation. That recommendation goes to Ray and other directors sometimes for approval. So if the officer is waiting for information in order to include in their written business analysis report, then they can't move forward with approval. It's not a quick, like, hit a button and just is approved. There is a process, because ultimately our board of directors will ask questions about, well, who is approved. On a monthly basis, we provide an update of all financial products that have been approved and who those clients are. And so if there hasn't been movement from month to month on payment, then they will look into it. And then ultimately, obviously, the government and the Auditor General will ask us the same questions. Who, why, what, where, when. So I think in some other types of scenarios outside of finance, and you could probably get an approval pretty quickly, right? I think we were also able to turn around grants pretty quickly because the burden of repayment wasn't there, right? We didn't have to analyze whether or not a business would have to repay back that grant. But anytime we get into loans, we have to feel pretty comfortable that that business will be able to repay us back. So it takes a bit of time. Our ideal goal is to process applications within 25 business days of receipt of a completed application. That's our target and our goal. And the last question was around, do they have to redo paperwork if already provided from the credit union? And so my question would be whether or not it's the application under the pre-approved guarantee that we have with the credit union, which it sounds like it might be. So if you have filled out an application or our application form and have provided that to the credit union, then you can submit, you will have to submit that information through our business register. So if it's relevant information and there are no updates, right? It just depends on time of when you got that approval from them. So I can't say that there won't be a redo of some paperwork, because there obviously would be a time difference of when you applied and got that from them and where you are right now in your business. And the other factor is that you have to upload everything through the business register. But I would just say, show us, give us a call or look, and then we'll let you know if you need to update anything. I think those are all the questions, but as I said, I want to thank everyone. Apologies that we went 15 minutes over. I think we were being very ambitious to try and cover all of it, but we also thought it was important for everyone. We might have to do this again, or maybe just have an opportunity for people to just ask questions on anything and just answer them. But we want to thank you for your time. If you have any questions, please let us know and email us at info@bedc.bm. Once again, all of the handouts will be sent to you. The recording will be sent to you, as well as the answers to these questions. We really want to wish you guys success in your entrepreneurial endeavors. We get excited when entrepreneurs are created and businesses are created and they grow. So I want to thank you. Ray, you want to say anything in closing?
No, I think you've done it well. As I say, we look to assist wherever we can. So if there's any questions, and while it's not a requirement to meet with one of our officers, I think it's still a good suggestion that if you're thinking about the process, to have a meeting with an officer, organize a meeting to be able to discuss your business, to be able to get a better understanding of what we're looking for, if the seminar itself is still unclear, and make it a little bit more personal, because again, we are doing our best to assist, but it's a very tough task at times. So we want to make sure we're doing our best to help you, and we look forward to doing it the best we can, and look forward to a great year of doing so.
Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of the afternoon and have a great rest of the week.
Bye.